Hello and welcome to episode 301 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. A lot of good stuff on the show today, huh, Ben? I believe we started off with a conversation about whether you should taper off your studying before the official test.
Yep.
And somewhat surprisingly, I think we decided maybe not.
Yeah.
How about it doesn't matter whether you do or not?
It doesn't matter.
Stop taking it so damn seriously. But
Yeah.
anyways, we had a pretty long conversation about whether that's a good idea or not. And I think I certainly have changed my mind on that topic just recently, 15 years later teaching the LSAT. And I think I'm kind of changing my tune on whether you should taper off or take the day off before the test. Our conclusion is basically stop being so damn precious about it because you're giving the test more power than it really deserves. We read a personal statement from T. T tried to follow my advice in a recent newsletter, a recent lesson with a template maybe that people could follow for writing their personal statement. T was inspired and attempted to follow that template, but I think missed the mark, unfortunately. Sorry, T. We love you. We're not attacking you, but that personal statement is pretty much a fail. You need to go back to the drawing board on that one. We had a Pearls versus Turds featuring a video from LSAC that we haven't really had time to dig into too deeply, but it was about whether you should guess on questions. That's in Pearls versus Turds. And then we talked about some logical reasoning stuff for a good chunk of time.
Yeah. And your lesson to not yell at people. Or no.
Yeah, which was related to the
logical reasoning.
Yeah, that's related to the logical reasoning. Then we did a full question. Turned out to be a matching flaw question that we did in logical reasoning. This show is going to air on Monday, June 7th. That means there's about 5 days until the start of the June LSAT testing week. You've still got almost a month to register for the August LSAT. Probably no need to register for that until you get closer to the deadline. I mean, if it'll give you motivation to register now, then fine. If you are taking the June test, you probably should just go ahead, bite the bullet, and register for the August test. Again, so that you know that you're taking it again, so that you don't give the test too much power. Law schools only care about your highest score. So most people should be taking the LSAT multiple times, and you should just have like multiple overlapping registrations. That August test, by the way, is mid-August, starting on the 14th. One final announcement before we jump into the content for today's show. On Thursdays at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, I teach a free class, all free LSAT Demon or paid, but tons of free folks come to this class where we do a weekly check-in on where you're at. Right now, we're going to be definitely talking about last minute like stuff before the June LSAT. When you hear this, there will be one more of those June LSAT study group classes coming up this Thursday, right before the beginning of the June LSAT. We'll probably talk about whether you should withdraw or not if you think you're really not ready. We might extend this conversation about whether you should take the day off the day before the test. But anyway, you can come ask me any question. All you got to do is register for that with a free LSAT Demon account. Hey, so the June LSAT's right around the corner. This show is going to air, like days for some people before the June LSAT starts.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you, Ben. I have some thoughts on it, but let me just get your like gut reaction and then we can talk about it.
Sure.
What do you think about tapering down your studies at the end, like before your official test? What's your opinion on tapering?
Well, I've always thought that people should not do something the day before. And recently, or I guess over the last year or so, I've been saying that if you feel the need to taper down more than that, I kind of question whether you're doing too much already.
To begin
like in my
with.
mind, wait, what?
you're just doing too much to begin with. Like you've
Yeah.
been studying an uncivilized, unsustainable amount. If you really feel like you need to take time off before the official test, maybe
Yeah.
you just shouldn't be studying that much, even if it's 6 weeks before the test.
Exactly. I think that when we study, we should study for an hour to 2 hours a day. And as you always say, it should be your best hour. And by best hour, I take that to mean at the best time of day for you to study, and also be the hour in which you are the most intensely focused on what you're doing and pushing the ball forward with the test, right? Not lazily reading a question and chatting with somebody in text or anything like this. Is going after the things that are giving you trouble and
Sure.
really digging into them and understanding them, but in a way that's sustainable. So you can do it today and you can do it tomorrow and you can do it the next day. So when you get closer to a test, yeah, I'm okay with that, I guess, cooling off a little bit. But if you really need to cool off, yeah, my question would be, have you been doing too much all along?
Yeah, and I 100% agree on that. You want to study a civilized, productive amount kind of
Yeah.
constantly.
Yeah.
Not to mention, you're probably not going to just take the LSAT once. I mean, I know that's your fantasy that you want to just take it once, and sure, if it goes well, fine. Maybe you do only take it once, but most people are going to take it 2 times or 3 times, and I, so you should be kind of thinking about the long haul, I guess. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, so we agree on that. But since the very beginning of me teaching LSAT 15 years ago, I've always like kind of harped on the idea that, okay, well, we're definitely going to take the day off before the test, right? We're not going to study at all the day before the test, right?
Sure.
And I still do believe in, going to the movies or whatever, something relaxing the night before to kind of take your mind off it. Movies are great for that. It's immersive. Um, I saw A Quiet Place Part 2 last night in the theater. It was surprisingly good. It's so weird that they made a sequel of that movie. But anyway, um,
Oh, yeah, my son wants to see that. Maybe I'll go see it. My hesitation was that the end of that movie really pissed me off because I was like, you're telling me that no military has figured out that sound is their weakness?
oh, there's all kinds of dumb shit in that movie. I mean, it's I think it's what we would call high concept, and you have to just sort of you just gotta kind of go with it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
there's in the second one too, I was just like, well, that makes no sense and that
Yeah.
makes no sense, and wait, they did what now? Like, oh my god, that's a terrible idea. um but anyway, whatever, it's still fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun stupid movie. And there's things about it that are smart too. Whatever, this is not a film show. um but here's the thing about this tapering or the taking the
Hmm.
day off, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if it conflicts with our other advice, which is don't do anything different or special on the day of the official test. You know how people sometimes have practice test scores that are like average 165 plus or minus 3, and then on their official test, they score 155?
Yeah.
I wonder if that comes from people taking the official test too seriously, giving it like too much respect.
Sure. Because we don't
And
tell people to take the day off before the Saturday proctored exam.
that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
And so, and I've been thinking about it a bit. I wanted to talk to you about it, but I don't know. I don't think I'm going to get away from this idea that if you're going to take the day off before your official test, then you probably should also be taking the day off before all of those practice tests, because otherwise you are necessarily doing something different for the official test than you did for your practice tests.
Yeah. And why throw in a random variable for the official test? It's no different.
Right. If we want, I mean, because I mean, that's really my number one. People are like, well, how do I avoid anxiety on test day? And I'm like, well, it's just another practice test. Treat it like it's just another practice test.
Well, so as you're talking, one thing I'm thinking about is that our advice to take the day off before, I think, was in part a reaction to the fact that so many people are trying to cram the
Well,
day before,
exactly. And I think
right?
that's where the tapering came from in the first place, is that it's like
Yeah.
far from doubling down on your study time and, cramming in like you did for your college exams. I mean, people don't understand that the LSAT is just not a test of knowledge. And like, yeah, you can cram for your chemistry test or whatever that you took in college, but you cannot cram for the LSAT. It just doesn't work that way. It's
No,
not
it's
like
much
a
more like
just
a
stuff it
sport.
into your brain and then barf it out. It's like, no, you need to get good at playing basketball or whatever.
Yep. And
And
that's
that's
not going to change in one day.
not going to happen at
Oh,
the last minute.
yeah.
So we've tried to convince people that they shouldn't do extra studying on the week of the test, or especially the day before the test. But I think maybe I'm going to change my tune a little bit on this whole idea about, take the day off or taper down during the week before, because man, I just do not want people doing different weird stuff. Did you see that conversation that I had on Slack, Ben, with one of our tutors
No.
about, well, there was a student who kept scoring like wildly different on official tests than they were scoring on their practice test.
Hmm.
And I just had a feeling, I was like, well, they got to be doing something different. And they
Sure.
claimed that they were doing everything exactly the same.
Yeah.
Nope, doing everything exactly the same. And I was like, really? Exactly the same? Are you sure you're not trying to finish the sections, or, you sure you're not triple checking questions on the day of the official test, or, like strategically, I was thinking doing something different. Nope, nope.
Yeah.
100% doing everything exactly the same.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I don't know, man. This is a mystery. I don't know what's going on. And then I finally asked the tutor, I'm like, are they taking the test on like the same computer and in the same place and all that? And the tutor finds out, oh no, actually, this student, because they wanted a quiet spot to take the test, they had actually taken LSAC up on their offer of a hotel room.
Hmm.
And so they were taking the official test in a hotel room, which is totally 100% different from all of their practice tests. I mean, you're what? You're in a totally different physical environment. Like, it couldn't be more different in that way.
Yeah. It's interesting because I could see that being a difference for some people that makes a difference in their score. At the same time, just to play devil's advocate here, that's kind of like one of those things where, okay, it's different, but you shouldn't give a shit, right? Like,
Totally. And I'm not saying that it necessarily should change
yeah,
everything,
yeah,
but it could. And if I don't have any other explanation for why this student is scoring, like dramatically lower on their official test than they did on all their other tests, and I've already been through the whole, well, wait a second, are you like trying for your best score on the day of the test? Because that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be like embracing the
yeah,
middle of your range. And, or, are you being like extra super careful, like triple checking and running out of time because you're triple checking stuff, or, are you, and if I've gone through all of those questions and the student is like, no, 100% just trying to do everything, just trying to treat it like it's just another practice test. But then you find out that they're going to an unfamiliar hotel room somewhere to sit and take the official test somewhere different than they've been taking all of their practice tests. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then that now becomes my best hypothesis for why, and I know that it must also be changing the way the student is approaching the actual questions.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be, but it sure as hell seems like it is.
Yeah. Well, so let me recap what we're saying just to get my mind wrapped around it. One,
Yeah.
people have this tendency to cram, to double down, to even just take practice tests, right? Full practice tests the day before the official
Oh,
test,
yeah.
because they want to get a score that's high and then feel good about that. It's like, it's almost
Yeah.
like they're not even taking the test to learn. They're just pulling the slot lever and hoping to get a good score and then feel good about that. I've even heard people who take the test twice, right? Hopefully we've disabused people of that notion. But it's like they get a bad score in the morning and they're like, oh, damn, the official test is tomorrow. It's like, let me take a full nother test to see if I can get a good score on record, which none of this is doing you any good. It's like running, a 5K,
Yeah.
not being happy with your time, and then running a 5K again because tomorrow you have the actual 5K. It's
Yeah.
just really bad, right? But anyways, so we reacted to that and we said, look, knock it off. Don't do anything the day before. And you're saying, wait a sec, maybe that's a little bit of, maybe an overreaction to the overreaction.
Yeah. Well,
And we should just,
I'm remembering also, do you remember the whole thing about Mike? This is from like
yeah,
way
the
back.
NyQuil. Yeah.
The NyQuil guy, he couldn't
Yeah.
sleep, because but he did everything anybody ever asked him, right? Like lawyers tend to be really good worker bees, right? They
Mm-hmm.
got good grades
Mm-hmm.
in college because that's what they want to do, is like have a bunch of assignments and then do 120% of all of those assignments. And so I remember Mike had taken all of our advice to heart 1,000%, trying to do everything perfectly right. And then he, absolutely took the day off before the tests and went to the movies and was following all of our prescriptions and then couldn't sleep. And it's like, well, okay. I mean, maybe we need to just decide that the official test isn't that big of a deal, because it's not. It doesn't
Well,
have to be.
I think that's where I was going with this, because in some ways it's like, okay, so then it sounds like the advice is just do what you've always done. But I could even see people taking that to the extreme, right? Like, oh, I've never taken this in a hotel room before, so I must not take it in a hotel room. And it's like, yes, like you're saying that could be a problem, but it might be a bigger problem just to be so obsessed about that perfect environment. Right? Oh,
Right.
Ben and Nathan have said, treat the official test like all my practice tests, so I can't deviate
Right.
that in the slightest. And
And
we
that's,
see people doing that. And it's like, really, the advice is chill the fuck out.
yes.
Just stop thinking about this so much.
Yes. Yeah. Stop giving the test so much power. You're doing great on your practice tests because, I hope you give them your full attention and try to get the questions right. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think people do try to do their best when they're sitting there doing a practice test. And
Yep.
on your official test, I want you to sit there and try to do your best. But you don't need to be obsessing about it for 4 weeks in advance and, like triple highlighted red letter day on your calendar and engineering your whole life so that you can make sure that you do the test perfectly. Life is not perfect. Nothing about any of probably your previous practice tests, they weren't perfect. Your circumstances weren't perfect. The week before wasn't perfect. You might have had a couple beers too many the night before. I like that's okay probably, because what's the biggest disaster is to give the test the official day of the test, to give it so much attention and so much respect. Yeah, it's like trying to force yourself to sleep or
Yeah.
trying to force yourself to relax. And you can't do it because you're you're so obsessed with the idea. It's like your wedding day. Like, well, my wedding day is going to be the most beautiful, perfect, special day.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
no, it's not. It's going to be great. It's going to be a party. It's going to be fun. But man, the more you obsess about trying to make it exactly 100% perfect, you're just setting yourself up for disaster, because the second anything goes wrong, then you're crying, you know, or
Yeah.
then you're so pissed at your best friend because they ruined it, because they didn't do like whatever one thing that was planned, or whatever. The weather's bad, you know, anything can happen. And I don't know. I think maybe that's where I'm at with it now. Like, yeah, you want to take the night off before, or take the day off before the test, fine. Or you want to do a little bit of studying the day before the test, also fine. I don't
Yeah.
care. I want you to care about it. It's ironic, I suppose, but I want you to care about it less.
Yeah. Well, I think it's actually a good analogy. As you know, I'm getting married in September.
Congratulations.
And thank you. We submitted a schedule to one of the vendors and said, hey, we're going to have the ceremony at this time and then dinner at this time. And they were just all hour increments. And they wrote back and they're like, well, these things are going to take less than an hour or more than an hour. And we're like, yeah, we don't really care. The
Right.
schedule was not about this is exactly when things are going to happen. It's just a rough schedule so people know, this is how the evening is going to unfold. Things will start sooner than the schedule says, and things will start later than the schedule says. But it doesn't matter. The same should be true about the week, the month, or the days leading up to your official test. There's a rough outline of what you're going to do, and it should be close to what you have been doing. But if it doesn't match it, if you can't sleep, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, you should be planning to take the test again anyway. If it doesn't totally work out in your favor, schools only care about your highest score. Whether it's your first test or your third test, it shouldn't really make much of a difference in your whole strategy and your whole outlook and everything. It should just be
Yeah.
like, well, I've put in a lot of studying. I know that my practice tests indicate a score that will get me where I want to go. And if I get that on this official test, great. And if I don't, then I'm going to take it again. And I'm just not going to like give the test so much power. I'm not going to like, even in the relaxing, right? I'm not going to like take the relaxing so seriously that
Yeah.
I end up causing the stress bomb to go off.
Sorry, not to belabor this point, but you just made me think of two more things. So I really like how you said you can take it again. When you have the presumption that you're going to take the test 5 times, right?
Yeah.
It really it dethrones the next one because
Yeah.
it's like that's just one of five. So yeah, good luck with that. The second thing is I remember listening to a meditation session just like a week ago. You said something about relaxing. And in the meditation, she's like, the meditation is trying to help you relax. But she's like, the very first thing she said was stop trying to relax.
Right.
Like, just let go of that. Like, it will come maybe like it's that,
Right.
like, oh, I have to be relaxed that like makes you struggle.
Yeah. All the meditation stuff that I've ever like, well, anything that I've ever actually connected with, it's always
Yeah.
been like, well, you're going to just try to observe your thoughts,
Yeah.
and you just want to notice when you're having thoughts.
And
You
that's
can't
okay.
force yourself to think about nothing.
Yeah.
You can just sort of observe, oh, now I'm thinking about what I'm going to have for dinner. And you just like let it pass.
Yep.
And it's you can't force yourself to clear your mind. You just have to be aware of what's going on inside your mind and just watch it. And then the more you practice it, the better and better you'll get at it. Yeah. I've never had test anxiety. I like my heart will pound sometimes on the first tee if I'm playing in a golf tournament that I care about. I think that's the closest thing I have to that experience of being like really nervous about a moment or performance, but golf it's actually a pretty good analogy, because if I do anything different or extra or special on the day before I have an important golf thing, it definitely just makes me more stressed out. It definitely doesn't help me. Even if I like try to force myself to be calm or whatever, that's not a thing. You just have to figure out a way. I think the best thing is to just accept that there is a range of outcomes. Like embrace the entirety of your range of scores and realize that today might not be your day, or it might be your day.
Yeah. And some people might walk away from this conversation thinking, oh, I shouldn't have test anxiety. That means I'm doing something wrong. And we're just saying, actually, none of it matters.
Yeah. Like
if you feel test anxiety, so do 1,000 other test takers.
Yeah.
And just accept it, acknowledge it, and go take the test.
Yeah. If your heart is pounding as you're answering the first question, or if you get stuck on question number 4 and you start to freak out, you just need to sort of recognize it. Like, oh, I wasn't expecting this one to be that hard, but for whatever reason, I'm missing something here.
And it's stressing me out.
And it's stressing me out, and my heart is pounding, and my palms are sweaty and whatever. But it's okay, because it's just another practice test, and I'm going to take the test again anyway. And I just got to do my best on this question. And because that's all I can really ever control anyway.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. No, I think that was a useful discussion. I'd never really thought about it before. I think I had always just sort of, without thinking about it too deeply, had always just said, yeah, definitely take the day off, because you need to, rest up, or what I really meant was I don't want you to burn out the day before the test. But I think people can like relax so hard that they then cause exactly the stress bomb that we want to try to avoid if we can.
Yep.
It doesn't matter. You want to check out this email?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want me to read it?
Yeah.
Okay, this is T's personal statement. Hi. I was so inspired by the recent personal statement newsletter that I gave the format a try. Okay, cool. So this is your I am, I did, and I do format, right?
And then optionally, I will, if people feel like they need, they're clearly making some big transition. They've been a professional athlete or something, and now all of a sudden they want to go to law school. They might need to put, one sentence at the very end, or 2 sentences at the very end that says I will. But basically, yeah, I am, like, here's who I am in the world. And then I did, so that you kind of go back in time, show a little bit of where you came from. I do, and we want to really expand on who you are today, because that's the person the law school is actually getting, not the person you were. And the person that you will be is totally speculative. So you don't really get to say more than a sentence or 2 in my book about what you will do. But you focus on what you do now. That's the bulk of the statement, really. I did, I do. Probably wrap it up there in most cases. Anyway.
Yeah, cool. T continues. Please let me know what you think. And a follow-up question about writing an addendum for a GPA that is low A's.
Low period.
That's
supposed to be just a period. Yes.
I was like, okay. Anyways, writing an addendum for a GPA that is low, period. As a first-year undergrad, I followed the path of my family members into a biology major. I struggled to stay motivated because I was completely not interested in the subject, and then took too long to change majors. In my 3rd year, I switched to a history major. I graduated with departmental honors in history, but my GPA had suffered. I graduated with a 3.4. Would you recommend I write an addendum? I've since earned a 3.6 while earning a master's degree. Okay.
Don't
I
care.
know that they usually don't care about that. Great. So we don't need to worry about that. With the help of the LSAT demon, so far, I've climbed up from a 155 to a 164 on practice tests, hoping to hit 169 plus. Okay, got it. I would say, okay, we get these GPA addendums questions all the time, and I feel like our advice is always the same. If you have if the more recent semesters or years are a higher GPA, then simply say, I struggled my first 2 years, but after this, my last 2 semesters GPA is X, which is obviously going to be higher now because it excludes the lower grades that are pulling down your GPA average, and then just stop.
Yeah, this is a perfect place to write an addendum. They're not going to care that much because your GPA is what your GPA is, and they're going to have to report whatever your LSAC GPA is. So it's a marginal issue. Like it might help you a little bit to write this addendum. I would do what Ben says and stick to the facts. Basically say, I switched majors. I started as a biology major. Everyone knows biology majors are hard. So you say you started as a biology major, then you switched into history because and then say, I had a 4.0 in history. That's it.
Fun.
Yeah, just get out.
The goal here is to give them a legit number that's a lot higher so that on a subjective level, they can have a higher number floating around in their head.
Yeah, they can kind of anchor on that and go like, well, maybe this person's a diamond in the rough. Look at their LSAT score. It clearly reflects that they've got the horsepower to do this. And, their cumulative GPA of 3.4. Well, that's because they started as a biology major and they're actually more of this, in history, they had a 4.0. So great.
And let me double down here. Do
Yeah.
not elaborate. Like,
well,
I struggled to stay motivated because I was complete.
Exactly.
Like, none of that. Just like, I started with a biology major, which was challenging, period. I switched to history. From that point on, I had a 4.0, period.
Yeah.
Done.
I think T is like explaining it to us. Yeah. But boy, people love oversharing on documents that they, even when, we see like, oh, here's a draft of my addendum. And it's like, if you say, I struggled to stay motivated because I was completely not interested in the subject.
Yeah.
That is not a point in your favor.
Nope. Shows poor judgment. I took too long to change majors. Poor judgment. You're just bringing emphasis to bad decisions.
Not only that,
let's just say you struggled and move on.
Yeah, not only that, but it's also this like excuse making, right? It's just this like, oh, this is the type of person who doesn't think they ever do anything wrong. It's never their fault. They're not willing to take responsibility for their low grades. They just want to talk about how they were completely, oh, I followed my family into this and I was completely not interested in it. I just didn't want to do it. That's why I didn't do well. That tone is like, and I don't think that that's T's intention at all here, but people do need to be really careful not to even come close to that type of a thing.
I would say one more thing too. We don't read these very often compared to the amount of times that admissions officers read these, obviously, right? Because that's not our job. But we've read enough of them that when I see an addendum, it's supposed to be a short explanation for one specific thing.
Right.
And it's already a fat paragraph. I mean, some of these are like a page.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm vomiting. But even a fat paragraph, I'm like, oh, dear God, it seems like you're going to just start explaining too much. These are 1 or 2 sentences, tops.
Yeah, stick to the facts. I started as a biology major. I switched into history as a junior. My GPA from that point forward was a 4.0 with departmental honors.
Mic drop.
That's enough. Yeah. Everybody knows biology's hard. They're going to go like, oh yeah, biology, that's hard. But if you start making all these excuses about motivation and not interested in it and followed your family that way, and, maybe it's not your fault because you wanted to do what they did. It's like, don't go there, because it makes you look like I don't know what, like a whiner or like a blamer.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you are at all, T. I just don't want you to even hint at that. Okay.
Yeah.
Ready
Cool.
for the actual personal statement?
Yeah, let's check it out. So T is supposedly following the format that you gave. Again, that's I am, I did, I do, and maybe I will.
Yeah, and I think T did a good job trying to follow the format, but
Okay.
T also is ignoring a lot of our other advice on the show, particularly the syntax and the verb choices. The subjects and the verbs here are very poorly chosen, in my view. But anyway, I'll let you read it.
Sure. Okay. First sentence. My small business is a tutoring LLC. Okay. Well, I love that your first sentence is short, T, but the subject is your business, which is kind of abstract. And the focus of this sentence is on this idea that it's an LLC, which I don't really care about what the legal classification of your business is.
And the verb is the super boring passive is.
Yeah.
Form of the verb to be. Everybody needs to get rid of the verb to be in their personal statement. I'm not saying you can't ever use it,
And to
but
be
look
fair, I
out.
am is a to be verb, but yeah.
Yeah, but at least I is the subject of that sentence, and it's
Yeah.
read the next sentence.
Okay. Double space for some interesting reason.
Mm.
I am the sole owner, operator, and tutor.
I think you just combine those two sentences into one.
Yeah.
And say, I am the sole owner and operator of a tutoring LLC. If you have to say LLC, I don't know what LLC does for you. You could just say company.
Yeah. Or it's almost like I kind of want to skip the I am portion of your format and say something like 3 years ago, comma, I started a tutoring business.
That's fine, actually. That's fine. You don't actually need to have a sentence that says I am blank. I think what I was really trying to get across is, in the first couple sentences, we got to have some clue who you are.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's not coming through, because a lot of times people like start going into their history of what happened 10 years ago, and when I crossed the border into whatever, and it's like, what? Who are you? Where are we? What are we doing? What is this?
I looked across the street and saw the young girl.
Yeah, I don't want
for her mother, and it's like, what?
It drops you in too abruptly without, like, if this could be the first thing. Like they might not have looked at your resume. They might not have looked at your transcripts. They probably have your LSAT and GPA, and they start reading this and they want to know who you are. Like, what's your brand? Who are you? What's your deal? And you don't have to say I am a tutor, but you could, if you needed to.
And it's more natural for people, like you said.
Yeah. All right. Maybe let's see if we can get through this. Can you read the whole first paragraph and I'll shut up?
Sure. My work supports the aspirations of teenagers looking to increase their ACT and SAT scores. Again, that's an interesting subject, my work. Students gain skills and confidence while working with me, semicolon. I've enjoyed 10 years of positive reviews, recommendations, and clients coming back for their younger kids. Okay. My business framework has grown to include both teaching small classes and working with students abroad. All right, I see what you're saying about these subjects. A lot of these subjects are abstract concepts. My work, my framework, my business.
And it keeps going. The entire statement's like that.
Interesting.
You're allowed to use I as the subject of your sentences. You don't have to do it for every sentence because that would be boring. But you go ahead and use I.
It's a personal statement. Maybe
we're
people
here to learn about you.
Yeah. people are probably reacting to those essays they wrote in school when they started saying things like, I think this, I
Oh,
think
right.
that. And the teacher was like, stop saying I. But that's because you're saying an unnecessary phrase. You could just say what you think.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I don't want, I think, I learned, I feel. I don't want
Yeah.
any of that shit. I want, I did. I, active verb.
Yep.
That's fine. You don't need, I mean, my business framework is the subject of that last sentence, and the verb is
Yeah.
has grown, I guess. I guess it's a past tense of grow. My business framework has grown.
Well, it's a lost opportunity, right? Basically, you did something, but now you're attributing that work that you did to some mysterious
Framework.
passive force. My framework has grown. Like what grew it?
Well, that sentence could be, I now teach small classes and
Yep.
work with students abroad.
Then you'd be like, damn, okay, cool.
It's far fewer words, and
Yeah.
we get it. That, I mean, what, your business framework has grown? Come on now. That's like just intentionally forcing in this weird MBA bullshit.
Yeah.
All right, next paragraph.
Yeah. The various steps needed to get here. Okay, that's your subject. That's a long subject. It's 7 words. Have included the logistics involved in creating a small business. Okay, now you're like overselling.
Oh,
Wordy
hell yeah.
overselling.
Brutally overselling it. We that sentence is content free, by the way. We already know that you're the sole owner operator of a business. So yeah, the various steps needed to get here have included the logistics involved in creating a small business. No shit. We already knew that. That's like, does nothing at all. I mean, that's like really, literally, it's content free.
Content free. Yeah, I like this. It's like Coke Zero, but this is like content zero. Nothing.
Content zero. That's funny. Okay.
I registered a business name on the state level. Okay.
Wow. You filled out a form online. I mean, what?
I'm sorry, T.
Well, this is like T trying. This is where they're like, try too hard to make it sound like lawyer shit.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit about that, T. That's not impressive at all. You working with customers is impressive. You hustling to get business, that's impressive. You doing really good work, going out of your way to delight your clients and getting all these great reviews, that shit is actually impressive. You going on the website to register your business name, come on.
Yeah. I developed a website featuring my logo, business portrait, and links to test prep resources.
Maybe it's things you did. It feels a little like overselling though. Like the thing is, you invite the reader. I can see Ben doing it. I can see it in his face. Ben's just like, oh Jesus, how hard is it to go on Squarespace and make a cheesy business? It's a template. You uploaded a photo.
Yeah.
You put some links. What? How long did that take? 15 minutes?
Yeah. Over time, I improved my curricula. Kind of seems like a big word unnecessarily, but anyways, by updating the study materials and by learning from other tutors. I don't know if I would explain how you did that. I think I would I don't know. Okay, cool. I've written tutor client agreements to be signed.
Boo.
And I am boo. Yeah, that's trying to be like a lawyer.
That's trying to be a lawyer. Please do not try to be a lawyer. We know that you're not a lawyer. You're applying to law school. It's the most naive thing you can possibly do, honestly, is to talk about. Remember, what did we have one really recently, right? Where someone was kind of doing that, saying, "Oh, it was the last paragraph of the car
sales." Yeah, what was it? Signing agree? No,
Something
negotiating
about the,
agreements.
yeah, about the contractual something. It was like, dude, come on.
Legally binding.
Exactly. I want to learn how to craft legally binding. Okay. We know you're going to law school. We get it. And you're not a lawyer right now. So stop talking about lawyer shit. Like it you want to demonstrate aptitude, but you don't want to ever verge into this area of like, oh, well, I'm already, basically a lawyer. I mean, I've crafted all of these tutor client agreements.
Tutor client agreements. Oh my gosh. Okay.
We're so
And I
much
am
more interested in the fact that you invoiced a client and got paid. That's way more interesting. If you did the work for these people, you invoiced them and got paid. That's way more interesting than the stupid contract you made them sign for no reason.
yeah. And along those lines, you got paid and you got repeat business. It means that you know how to run a business successfully. You know how to provide, I hate this term because it's so MBA-ish, but you know how to provide value. You know how to do something out there that matters. How many businesses are started that fail and go nowhere because the person is not offering anything of value?
Right.
So I think that's where you need to focus. Okay, this sentence continues, comma, and I'm constantly marketing on social media. Okay, you're telling me something you're doing, which is nice. I'd love to know more about like solving a problem maybe and succeeding there. But anyways.
Yeah, by the way, search your document for LY space.
Yeah.
If you search your document for LY space, you're going to see the constantly pop up there.
Yeah.
You can cut that. Really? You're constantly marketing on social media? Okay, one, you're not. You're literally not constantly marketing on social media. You do marketing on social media. Okay, fine. But it's just this it's inherently, it's like verbal diarrhea, it's just this like I've got to throw in these magnifying terms all the time.
It's the problem with overselling. You sell a little bit too far and then everybody kind of recoils and says, wait a sec, really?
Well, you're just not. I mean, you're definitely not constantly marketing on social media, because if you are constantly marketing on social media, then you're not doing a very good job for your students.
Yep.
You're doing other things. So, it's like, I get the point. You're trying to sell the idea that you had to do this marketing on social media. If you want to say more about what you did to market on social media, that might be interesting. But your claim that you're constantly marketing on social media is one, false, and two, just not impressive anyway.
Okay. We have two spaces after this sentence, which is inconsistent in other cases.
Yeah, there's one in some places and two in others.
A side project emerged when I was hired as a teacher and administrator for a Beijing-based education company, semicolon. Okay.
Two semicolons so far. That
Yep.
needs to be zero.
Wait, so why? I feel like that's almost every episode in which we talk about a personal statement, we revoke semicolon privileges. So I don't understand. If you're listening right now and you're going to write a personal statement, you are not allowed to use a semicolon. I don't care what you think. I think you're thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not talking to you, T. I'm talking to everybody. Oh, but I'm a good writer. I know
how to use it properly. They mean don't use it if you don't know how to use it properly. No, well, I do definitely mean don't use it if you don't know how to use it properly. But I also mean don't use it, period, because it's just obnoxious.
And none of you know how to use it properly. Like,
this is proper. It's two related sentences, but the thing is, you could just use a period and start a new sentence. And just do that, because it's obnoxious. And we're gonna, when we read it, I mean, I can't help myself. When I see it, I say the word semicolon every time. It's like, oh, look at you, fancy pants. You went to college. Wow, semicolon. It's just like, there's no need for it. Why don't you use a semicolon every other time you use a period?
Yeah. Well, so before we even go into the rest of the sentence, a side project emerged. So again,
Right.
this is passive. Like, where did it come from? It came out of the ether. When I was hired, okay, again, you were
Passive.
hired by someone. Like, what did you do to get this position? There's so many opportunities here where you could talk about your decisions and your actions that led to moving the ball forward. You were hired as a teacher and administrator for a Beijing based education company. Like right now, my mind is thinking, are you the sole owner, operator, and tutor of your business that's booming and successful? Therefore, you don't have time for these kinds of things? Or are you kind of just doing a side gig and now you got hired for a real
Yeah.
job?
Right. That makes you look like an hourly employee from some Beijing based education conglomerate. You could have talked about your work instead. You could have just said, like, leave Beijing based education company out of it. I think that T thinks that that sounds big and exotic and, global, and therefore more lawyerly for some reason. But it has the
Yeah.
exact opposite effect because it makes it look like other people are telling you what to do. You could have instead said, you could say instead,
I
um,
partnered.
yeah, or, yeah, just say what you did,
Yeah.
like, I adapted my lessons and learned some Chinese basics to better predict the linguistic hurdles ESL clients from China experience. Something like that, where it's like you're putting yourself in the driver's seat. You're solving a problem now instead of like this, well, I got this gig and, in order to deal with these clients, I had to do some stuff. It'd be much better to just like make it look like all that was your idea. Cause here it doesn't look like it was your idea.
Yeah. So T continues, for those ambitious ESL clients, I've adapted my lessons and learned from some Chinese basics to better predict their linguistic hurdles. Yeah, it's almost like you could frame this as you expanded your market abroad, as you said earlier, by solving these problems for your Chinese clients.
It just would be
Um,
so much better if T started with I.
yep.
If you just let out with what you did,
Yeah.
you took there, it's like 30 words and a semicolon before we ever get to what you actual like you taking action.
Well, what's interesting too is when you use the word I and then you say an active verb describing what you did, it becomes very easy to imagine you doing that. And you've done that in a few of these sentences, but you've done it with the things that aren't impressive. And with the
Right.
things that are impressive, you've resorted to this passive voice that uses some abstract idea as your subject. And so you're burying the good stuff and you're highlighting the stuff that's sort of meh.
Yep.
Duties that are specific to the administrative part of that role include interviewing, hiring, and contracting with other American teachers.
Such a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
I interview, hire, and contract other American teachers to serve our clients in Beijing or whatever. But just make yourself the subject of the damn sentence so that you can hurry up and get to what you actually do. This is like, it's just all through this whole statement. And it's not just T, it's a million other people who do this exact same thing. They're just like so reluctant for whatever reason to use I as the subject of their sentences that they end up with duties that are specific to the administrative part of that role as the subject of a sentence in a personal statement.
That's an 11 word subject.
Yeah, and it just makes it look like you're being told what to do. It's like
Yes,
the
exactly.
role. It's not you, it's the role.
Well,
You didn't do
and
shit. You just have a job.
we have to infer from the fact that the duties in this role were things that you ultimately ended up doing.
I interview, hire,
Yeah.
and contract with other American teachers.
Yeah.
That's your sentence, not this whole. It's just, I don't know. It's like you're going out of your way not to make yourself the focus of the statement.
The next paragraph says ugh, the impetus to pursue law is a recent one. Don't ever say that. That makes it sound like I don't know, like you had an epiphany and now you're going to law school. I'm worried that you're going to have an epiphany tomorrow and decide not to go to law school. After my college graduation, I took my positive experience volunteering at a neighborhood school, ooh, and my ambition to progress in my own education as a sign that I should study teaching in graduate school.
What now? Listen, what? It's, I'm sorry. I really appreciate that T tried to follow my recommendation. And my recommendation was not the only way that you can write a personal statement. It was just one way that you can write a personal statement. But T specifically said, I was so inspired by your lesson that I tried to do that. But what? The whole purpose of the lesson was, hey, people skip around in the timeline way too much. I don't want you to skip around in the timeline. I said specifically that we're going to skip once. You're going to say who you are, maybe in like a sentence, and then you're immediately going to go back in time. It's going to be one time that you go back in time so that you can say what you did, then say what you do. And
Which is
instead, T is like started with the business, talked about how the business has grown and how, over time, how you've improved, whatever. And then we're now more than halfway through the statement. And all of a sudden, we're talking about your college graduation. What? And you're then going back to your decision to go to grad school.
Okay, so T continues. I worked for 10 years as a social studies public school teacher for grades 7-12.
Okay.
Okay.
Interesting part of your history. I mean,
well, actually, I am confused.
Me too. I'm totally confused.
But how did you do this for 10 years? Also run a business, and this impetus to pursue law is a recent one. Apparently it happened after your college graduation, but you've also had 10 years time to teach public school. I don't know what's going on here.
I hate this next bit. I hate it.
I was drawn to teacher travel seminars and to postgraduate classes, but these attempts to keep me intellectually stimulated were not enough.
Don't you hate that?
T, this sounds a lot like your excuse in your addendum.
Yeah, everybody, you got to make yourself look like a positive, happy winner. And everybody protests too much. They think that they need to sell law school to the law school.
Yeah.
You don't. You're supposed to be selling yourself to the law school. And this, the constant protesting that, well, the reason is because all this stuff that I've been doing, it just wasn't enough for me.
Law school's the place for me. That's where I'm going to be pushed to my intellectual limit.
I feel bad that I don't remember the car guy's name, but didn't the car guy basically do the same thing in that last paragraph that we were like, this sucks, cut it?
Yeah.
In the last
I think it was Jake, right? He was trying to justify why.
And it's like,
oh, he said that his career would not be fulfilling enough.
Right. And it's like, and it was just this real jarring, like, dude, I already was admitting you because you're such a winner, and I just see you as this positive, happy, confident, like, I know that you're contributing everywhere you go. And then you just have to shit on your own experience with but it's, that's just, I knew it'd never be fulfilled. And now here it's like, these attempts to keep me intellectually stimulated were not enough. And it's like, oh, so I thought I was supposed to be impressed by this whole 10-year experience of teaching apparently teaching high school and also running a tutoring company at the same time, I think, which you never really said that. And you should have just said that in a more straightforward manner. But I want to be impressed by all that. I want to be like, oh, wow, Look at T. T's been kicking ass at a couple different things simultaneously. Isn't that great? And instead, T has to like just totally undercut it with the I'm not intellectually stimulated, which is just like such a sad, negative. Why?
It also it comes across a little arrogant. It's kind of like, oh, this
Yeah,
was beneath me. And it's
all
like
wrong, all
postgraduate
wrong.
classes. I'm sure there was something you learned from that. There's something we can learn from so many things.
Be positive and confident about the shit you've done. You have a lot to be proud of. You're allowed to be proud. You're supposed to be putting your best foot forward here. You don't need to just then, start talking about the downsides of whatever car you're trying to sell us.
Okay. T continues, and this just violates several of our rules. Ultimately, I felt. Okay, there you
Ly and the I felt. Okay.
yeah, ultimately, I felt we don't care about how you feel about anything. Choosing to work in 7-12 education. Sorry, I just have to read that like that. In 7-12,
Say
7
high
through 12.
school or
Yeah.
whatever. I understand that it's probably junior high and high school, but you can just say high school, probably keep it simple. You want to keep it readable. Anyway, what did you feel about working in 7 to 12 education?
Was like returning to a bubble I had lived in before.
What?
Who cares?
Well,
We don't need to know this.
and that's
You're
meant to
moving
be,
forward.
I think that's meant to be negative, right?
I
What
think that's
T's
meant to be
saying is
negative. Yeah.
when I went back to, I this whole 10 years as a social studies public school teacher, I guess you're supposed to then be talking about your master's. Yeah, I think you're telling us about your master's and then deciding, but no, because to work in 7 to 12 education was like returning to a bubble you had lived in before and you don't want to do that. Please cut all that. That's not what we want. We want to believe you. We want to believe you as a winner. And it's just, I don't know, protesting too much. I know I've said this 10 times already today, but you're protesting too much. Stop it. Just say positive things about who you are and what you do.
T continues. On the other hand,
Oh, dear God.
managing a small business has thrown a spotlight on the infinite ways local, state, and federal laws. Oh my gosh.
T,
are entrenched in my life.
what are you doing?
I've become a prepubescent attorney, and I can see all the infinite ways that the law has infected my life. Adventure what? Adventures in parenting and home ownership have only broadened the scope of that revelatory light.
What?
I can't. Revelatory light? Like, so much of this statement, T, is you being the recipient of external forces. Like, things have just come to you. In the fall of 2020, I started
Three
the path.
spaces, Ben. Three spaces before
Oh,
that next
no.
sentence.
I'm sorry, T. I hope you knew what you were getting into when you
Just
sent
cut
us this
all
personal
this. I
statement.
mean, it's like, why on earth are you even including that? The
I
fuck?
think T is
Home
trying to show.
ownership? What? How is that? Why do you think that is a relevant fact?
T has encountered the laws associated with home ownership. I don't know. Tax deductions. So now you should become an attorney. Okay. In the fall of 2020, I started the path towards, should be toward, by the way, law school with a rigorous paralegal program. Okay.
That was less than a year. That was 9 months ago. I don't want to hear about you starting the path. Say something that you do in the paralegal program. That's fine. You don't need to announce that this is the beginning of a path toward law school.
Well, also, I don't love the overselling of the paralegal program. It was a rigorous one, by the way. I've been doing a
how
really
rigorous. Yeah.
challenging.
Just say what you did. God damn it.
While researching case law and writing briefs and memos, I've affirmed that I'm in the right direction.
You're in the right direction? That's not even that's what?
I'm sorry. Sweet, man. We're going to have you come to our school. Yeah.
I've affirmed.
To who? Affirmed? To who? Yeah, to yourself.
Yeah, to whom? Not to me. I mean, I'm not saying I don't believe in you, T. I'm just saying that this document does not make me believe in you at all. This is not what I was going for. Too convoluted, gigantic conclusions at the end. I feel like I failed. I just don't. This is not my intention. Maybe go back and read my lesson again. This is a whiff, man. This is not close.
Okay, so everyone who's listening to this show right now, go back one episode. This is episode 301. So go back to episode 300, right? That's where we did Jake's personal statement.
Yeah, and I don't think Jake was necessarily following exactly my formula. You don't need to follow exactly my formula. But he had a lot of the
I did shit.
A million different ways to do it. Jake did great. That was so good. And it was about a thing that many people would
not right. I think
about. Jake he was like ashamed of it when he first wrote to us. And we were like, I'd really love to see a personal statement where you just talk about what you did at the car dealership. And then he did it. And it's awesome until the last paragraph where he did a lot of this shit.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, T. I'm sorry for beating you up. It's not what I was looking for. Ben, who is T? What is T? What do they actually do right now?
I'm not totally sure. I think T is a tutor. That's my guess, but it's a little hard to tell. The timeline's fuzzy.
Well, the first couple paragraphs were about tutoring, and then it weirdly went into this like unnecessary shit about it just got all muddy with the grad school and the 7 to 12 education, and all of a sudden 10 years as a social studies public school teacher. Is that supposed to be before the tutoring LLC? Because if it is, then you needed to say, I am the sole owner operator of a tutoring LLC. Then you go back in time and you say, for 10 years, I was a social studies teacher in the grades 7 to 12. You could talk a little bit about that. Then you can bring it into the present day and talk about, you got to pick something. I don't want to hear about your master's program and your paralegal program and your tutoring. I want to hear about one of those things. You don't have time to explain all of those things. You need to just like focus on one thing that you're proud of, probably the thing that you do the most, and just talk about that. I don't think you need to bring up the paralegal program at all. I think that's a nice line to have on your resume. I think that will sort of, when they see that on the resume, they'll go, oh, this person has some idea what they're getting into. Look, they're already studying paralegal. You don't need to mention it in your personal statement. It's too new. You haven't done anything, it doesn't sound like.
Yeah. This is where actually saying something undercuts the implied conclusion.
No, because everybody's yeah. We're rolling our eyes back into the back of our head with researching case law and writing briefs and memos. People are like, oh, you just started a paralegal program and now you think that you're,
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board, T.
Good luck. Yep. I mean, good news here, right? Sometimes we read personal statements and it doesn't seem like we can even tease out one like story or historical fact that they could elaborate on. T, it seems like you have a few things you could elaborate on. So that's good. You have something to talk about. Now talk about it.
It doesn't follow my format. I am a sole proprietor of a business doing tutoring, whatever. I used to do this, then I did this. Now I do this. Leave it there. I mean, almost everyone can just cut the entire last paragraph of their personal statement.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks they have to like tie it into the law. You just don't. If you look like a winner entrepreneur with your tutoring business, we are totally willing to go, oh, okay, yeah, this person knows what it takes to like go out and get business. Great.
Yep. Cool.
Now you want to come to law school? Cool. I don't really need to know exactly why or what you know, the briefs you've written in your paralegal program are not impressive to me. Okay.
Pearls
Next one.
versus turds. Yeah.
Pearls versus turds. This is the segment of the show where we take a bit of received scare quotes wisdom from the internet and we try to tell you whether it's a pearl of wisdom or a turd. The scoreboard heading into this is 14 pearls against 46 turds and 23 ties. Not a very good record out there for tips that we find on the internet. The email says, hi, Ben and Nathan, new listener here. I cannot thank you enough for thinking LSAT, semicolon. It changed my entire life in a matter of hours.
You know, I would say I actually liked that semicolon usage.
Just don't do it in your personal statement.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want in your emails. I don't care. Although don't use this font. It's that weird, like cartoony kind of font.
Yeah.
And maybe I did that. Maybe that's maybe it's not because it doesn't, it changes halfway through.
It changes. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I always wanted to practice entertainment law, and having earned a Bachelor of Science in Music Industry Studies, I am just beginning to understand very basic info regarding the LSAT, parentheses, time, questions, format, etc. I came across this LSAC YouTube video in which they advise guessing on questions you don't know the answer to. I know there is no penalty for wrong answers, but it still seems weird to me. Pearl, turd, or tie?
Sorry, you got to open up this video. Have you seen this?
No, I know, because ADOT even posted the video on our Slack. And I only had time yesterday to watch like 5 seconds of it, but I was like, wow, are you fucking kidding me? LSAC really went for it on this video. I got to watch the whole thing. I think we might have to come back to this video for a future segment because this dude in the bow tie is really something else.
Okay. It's called the LSAT, an introduction. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah. And it's by a dude who works for the Law School Admission Council, or at least did a few years ago.
Yeah.
And it's like a parody of what someone who works for the LSAC would look like. I have a feeling there's a gold mine in this video. So we do need to spend some more time really digging in. But
yeah, okay.
I want to address Abby.
Sure.
Abby's question. I know there's no penalty for wrong answers, but it still seems weird to me. Ben, should you guess on questions? Well, guessing on questions you don't know the answer to.
Ooh, that's like misleading.
Yeah. If that's the tip, it's a turd.
Mm-hmm. You should be answering every question you get to as best as you damn can.
Yeah, no guessing. Boy, read the question, read the answer choices, throw up your hands and guess at random is a complete waste of time. If that's the tip, then this is a turd, 100%.
Yeah, and almost everybody gets down to 2 answers. So if you have to choose, and I say choose, not guess, between 2, at least you have a 50-50 shot as opposed to guessing.
Even then, there should be like some sort of a gut feeling like, well, I'm not really sure why, but for this one seems maybe it's like a thing to do with the question type or something. It's like, well, this is a must be true question, and this one is worded a little softer. So if I had to pick between these two, I'll probably take that one because of the question type. But that's still not guessing at all. That's like getting as close as you can to the correct answer before you move on. If the tip is guess on questions you don't have time to attempt, then it's 100% a pearl. Most people shouldn't finish the sections, and you should basically be planning on running out of time at the end of the section. Our man Carl scored 179 on the official LSAT and didn't finish his reading comprehension section. So it's okay not to finish. You can still score elite scores without finishing every single question in the section. You need to get the ones you attempt right. And yeah, as Ben says, that's not guessing. That's getting as close as you can.
Yeah. So you're not guessing on the ones you're actually attempting, and you are guessing, if you want to call it that, filling in just a random answer for the ones that you don't get to. And I thought I would just take a moment to explain something in the LSAT Daemon for anyone who's using that program.
Okay.
There is some confusion about this, and we are going to make it easier to understand. But if you take fewer than 10 seconds on a question, the Daemon's going to assume that you guessed and exclude that question from your accuracy results, regardless of whether you got it right or wrong. So we can try to tell you what percentage of the questions you attempted you got correct. But if the Daemon is ever wrong, you can just click the no time icon and tell it that you actually did that question. You didn't just guess, or you can tell it the reverse. You didn't do that question. You actually just guessed. You didn't have time to attempt it, even though it thought you did. So you can fix the Daemon. But the point is to figure out what percentage of the questions you actually attempted you got correct, because we're trying to get that as close to 100% as possible, even if you're only doing 15 questions. And the Daemon helps you track that by essentially graying out those questions that it thinks you completely guessed on.
Okay. So we don't know exactly what this tip is, but if the dude is like, oh, try the question, and then if you don't know the answer, just guess and move on, then that is not what we're talking about.
Yep.
You need to do your work. Like, the question makes perfect sense. You're going to be encountering easy questions at the beginning of every section, and you should be solving them. You know, and yeah, you're going to encounter one or two questions where there seem to be two possible answers, and sometimes you're going to, you know, be 60-40 on it and pick the 60. But I still don't see that as guessing. I see that as being as accurate as you possibly can. And then yeah, you do want to bubble in a guess or click a answer for every question in the section. But that should take you no time at all. When the 5-minute warning pops up, you just guess on however many questions are remaining, and then go back to whatever question you were working on and figure it out and answer it correctly.
Yeah.
Is the proper strategy. I'm sure that's not what this dude said, but anyway, continuing on. If you don't mind me asking, when should I apply to law school? Based on recent podcasts, I know it's too late for fall 2022.
Fall 2021. Yeah, it's too late.
Definitely too late for fall 2021. I don't think it's too late for fall 2022. Applications haven't even opened for 2022. It's possible that you could take August, kill it, still apply at the very beginning of the cycle.
Yeah.
Also, do you think my liberal arts undergrad degree will make it harder for me to be considered as a serious candidate? No. I mean, aren't most law school applicants liberal artsy types of folks?
I think so. I get kind of what Abby's getting at. Maybe it's not like a hard science. So I don't think it's going to help you, but I don't think it would hurt you in any way.
Well, the vast majority of law school applicants are not, chemical engineers.
Yeah.
Almost all of them are history, English, poli-sci,
Yep.
criminal justice, a million other different, like, soft, whatever.
Yeah.
So no, that's not going to hurt you at all. My cumulative GPA is 3.656, and I have earned 136 hours.
Okay. I don't care about the hours, and I don't care about the extra 6.
I mean, 3.6 is pretty good. 3.6, 3.7, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
You get the right LSAT score. I mean, it might not be Stanford, but with a 175, it could be Stanford. So I don't think any doors are necessarily shut to Abby. I was going to ask you, do you know what NOLA is? It says Abby from
No.
NOLA, NOLA. I knew you wouldn't. Why did I know you wouldn't know that?
I don't know. If I don't know, I don't know.
It's New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, I should have known that actually. You know, it's sad. I did know that.
I saw that and I was like, I bet Ben's gonna like stumble on it. It's so funny that I watched you in the Google Doc highlight it like you were gonna go.
I'm
Google
like, what
it.
the fuck is this?
That's funny. We've been doing
But
this
I
for
actually,
too long.
it's just so strange. There's a reason I know this too. But anyways, whatever. Okay, cool.
Ben, what state has the highest murder rate?
I'm guessing Louisiana.
Yes, correct. Louisiana, like 30 years of running or whatever. Louisiana has the highest murder rate.
Don't lose that 30 years running.
I love New Orleans. New Orleans is great. Terrible weather, but awesome town. Anyway, Abby, thank you for writing in. If the tip is guess on the questions you don't have time to attempt, then the answer is yes. But I doubt that's the tip. And I'm actually pretty sure that this guy is going to think that you need to attempt every question. And I think we have to give this a turd, Ben.
Yeah, we have to give this a turd and we have to unpack this video.
Yeah, we're going to have to spend some more time with the video. I'm sure there's going to be a wealth of probably some good ideas. And this is a clearly bad idea that just keep it moving like that. That's a terrible tip. If you don't know the answer, just guess and move on. No penalty for guessing. So, just guess and move on. And the problem with that, the biggest problem with that is that the questions get harder as you get deeper into the section. So if you guess and move on too hastily, then what you're doing is you're just increasing the average difficulty of the questions that you're actually going to have the time to attempt. And many novices finish the test and they score like 140 because they're skimming the surface on the easier ones, not really figuring them out, and then wasting a bunch of time on the hardest ones that they might miss anyway, even if they had unlimited time. And that's why that's a turd.
All right. Can you see that video now?
Yep. Who is this guy?
I don't know who this guy is. Some guy at LSAC. Should we start at the beginning?
Sure. It looks promising.
Well, the best part of it, this guy's name is Ben, so this is going to be great. I can tell already.
All Bens are geniuses. This guy looks like a genius with his glasses and his bow tie.
Hello, my name is Ben Tice. I work for the Law School Admission Council, the organization that develops the LSAT. In this video, I will briefly discuss the format of the test and how best to prepare for it. The first thing to know is that the LSAT is a long test, a total of 3.5 hours of test time. There are 5 multiple-choice sections, each lasting 35 minutes. One of these sections does not contribute to your score. This section typically is used to gather data on new test questions. Finally, one unscored writing sample is administered at the end of the test. The scored multiple-choice sections of the LSAT consist of 1 analytical reasoning section, 2 logical reasoning sections, and 1 reading comprehension section. I discuss each of these different question types in more detail in subsequent videos. These sections can appear in any order, and you will not be told which section, of one of these types, is the additional unscored section. Mark the best answer you can for each and every question. There is no penalty for guessing on the LSAT, so you might as well guess on questions you don't know the answer to. At the end of the LSAT, you provide a writing sample in response to a prompt. This prompt will describe some choice between two mutually exclusive alternatives, and you will need to write a short essay in which you argue for one alternative over the other. The writing sample will not contribute to your score, but unlike the unscored multiple choice section, your writing sample will be seen by the law schools you apply to. So, you should take the writing sample as seriously as the rest of the test. How best can you prepare for the LSAT? In the long term, you are already preparing for the test by completing an undergraduate degree. But in the short term, your job is to thoroughly familiarize yourself with the test. To do this, there is no substitute for practice, practice, practice using previously administered LSATs. You can begin by consulting the free test prep materials available at lsac.org. There, you will find a number of sample questions with explanations, as well as one previously administered LSAT. Most test takers, of course, will benefit from additional test prep material. LSAC has a number of publications available for purchase through the website. These are described briefly at the end of this video. We suggest that you use the following general method for preparing for the LSAT. First, you should look at the sample questions and a prep test or two, but not worry about time. Your goal here is simply to get used to the test and the different kinds of questions we ask. Second, you should look at a number of prep tests and time yourself on individual sections. Your goal here is to get a feel for how quickly 35 minutes goes by and how long you can afford to spend on individual questions. Finally, you should eventually take entire prep tests under timed conditions. You need to simulate, as best as possible, the real thing. The LSAT is a long test, and you need to be ready for that before test day. Keep in mind your overall goal. You need to get to the place where nothing you see on test day surprises you, including the different question types and the rigors of taking a 3.5-hour test. Keep in mind that the LSAT is a challenging test. Don't be discouraged if you get a number of questions wrong as you are practicing. Your goal on test day is to do the best you can, not to aim for perfection. Additionally, be your best on test day. Avoid unnecessary stress and arrive well rested. We're confident that if you follow these tips and practice, 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 you'll put yourself in an excellent position to do well on the test. Thank you, and we wish you all the best as you pursue a legal education.
The Law School Admission Council offers inexpensive LSAT preparation materials, including actual past tests. Some are bundled to save you money. All are at lsac.org. Super Prep, practice tests and explanations for comprehensive preparation. The 10 actual official LSAT series, each with 10 tests for pure practice at an unbelievable price. Individual prep tests, released 6 weeks after the test, 3 times a year. The official LSAT handbook, with best approaches for all 3 LSAT item types. LSAT Item-Wise, online test familiarization tool. LSAT Prep Test ebooks, available at major online stores.
Great. Okay, cool. Hey, if you have a Pearl versus Turd candidate, we'd love to hear from you. You can email help@thinkinglsat.com. You can also drop us a line on social @thinkinglsat. Really, we appreciate all of the emails that we get from all y'all. So don't hesitate to email help@thinkinglsat.com and ask us a question about literally anything. Make a comment. We'll throw you in the mailbag for a future show.
Yell at us if you want. We yell at you, so yell at us.
Yeah, we do yell at you. Nice transition, Ben. Last week's lesson, my series of weekly email lessons, which have been going out every Thursday. I responded to a student. I don't know. Did you have a chance to read this one, Ben?
Oh yeah. No, actually I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, you can be honest. It's okay. You don't have to lie.
Well, I couldn't remember because I definitely see these coming to my inbox, but sometimes I don't read them. Anyways, yeah. So
this
what
link
happened?
no longer works because we have transitioned to the new daemon. I wanted to read. Here, I'll find it in the lessons. Boy, the new daemon is just so much better, so much better organized.
Cool, man.
Oh, and I don't see lesson 12 in here yet. Abigail's working on the organizations, but did I just say organizations plural? That's very strange of me. Anyway, here's basically the the email from the student.
Yeah.
Was, can you tell whoever's writing these explanations to stop being so snarky in their responses to the answers?
Mm.
When you start off with, oh, come on now, or Jesus Christ, what are you talking about, or whatever, in a response to an answer choice, then it's demoralizing for the student or whatever.
Yeah.
And thank you for your feedback. And I'm not unsympathetic to that view, but I wrote a column in defense of myself to say, I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the LSAT. And I really believe that this is a fundamental lesson that you have to learn, that the wrong answers are garbage. And so, yeah, you picked that answer, fine. I mean, I'm happy to tell you exactly why it's wrong. But my honest response to that answer was, what now? What are you even talking about? Or no way, that is on the wrong team, or something similarly like just harsh. And the reason why I react that way, it's the reason why I'm so good at the LSAT. And it's the reason why Ben is so good at the LSAT, is that we expect wrong answers to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to predict the answer to these questions. And whether we do or don't predict the answer before we even look at the answer choices, we always are reading A with a background presumption that A is going to be wrong 80% of the time. Right?
Yeah.
So we read the passage, we read the question, we made a prediction. We know, basically we know what the answer, frequently we know explicitly what the answer is going to say.
Yeah.
But even if we don't know explicitly what the answer is going to say, we also know that A is only the answer 1 out of 5 times. And we're not reading A hoping that it's correct. We're reading A looking for the reason why it's wrong.
Yeah.
And I promise you, it is a fundamental transformative shift in your performance on the LSAT if you start approaching the test that way. When you narrow it down to 3 answers, that's a fail, like a major fail.
Yeah. You're missing something.
There are never 3 good answers. There are almost never 2 good answers. Yeah. And, an expert is probably going to eliminate all 5 answers far more frequently than they narrow it down to 2. On the first read, I'm like, no. And then I sometimes go, okay, well, maybe I was a little too harsh on one of those answers. But on 4 of those, I was right.
Yeah. I mean, one thing people got to keep in mind is, let's talk about the 4 wrong answers for a half second to double down on what you're saying. If you're only eliminating 2 of those 4 wrong answers, so you're down to 3, as Nathan says, and failing, you got to keep in mind that the 4 wrong answers are 98% of the time completely dead wrong. There's no chance it could work as an answer, and dead wrong for more than one reason.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, I missed that reason. You missed 2 or sometimes 3 reasons that answer choice is wrong. And so when you're keeping that open, that means you're blind to some serious stuff.
Right. Wrong answers can misstate the argument. They can just completely fail to answer the question, just not respond to the question. The wrong answers do not have to respond to the question. That's important for you to realize. The wrong answers can be objectively wrong, just misstate the argument. They can fail to respond to the question, and sometimes they don't even make sense.
Yeah.
Sometimes all of those things at once.
Mm-hmm.
So if I did in my explanation hastily dismiss an answer, and then you feel that the answer deserves more consideration and you want a more thorough dismissal of that answer,
all
you got to do is hit the ask button Abigail and company will get back to you within 24 hours with clarification and make sure that you get all the way there. We want you to understand. We want you to understand why it's so bad.
Yeah.
But I don't intend to stop reacting strongly to terrible answers because that's how it's done, y'all. Like, I mean, the way we go fast is that we don't even read through the entire answer choice most of the time, probably. Like I bet that on half of the answers, I only read the first half of it and I'm already like, hell no, get out of here.
Nope.
What? You're not even answering the question.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. And so I know I'm defending myself like too much here, but I'm doing it because I'm like, all I care about is you getting better at the LSAT. That's my job. That's my business. I win when you win. And so my intention there is not to insult you. I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the LSAT. And I'm trying to teach you that this is the way you should be approaching these answer choices.
I just had a random thought.
Great.
And this is philosophical, so
great.
Maybe it means nothing, but one thing that I was thinking about right before we went into this segment is like, hey, if you want to yell at us, that's fine, because we yell at you on the show, we rip apart your personal statement. But maybe one way to think about this is that we're not actually even then yelling at you. We're yelling, and this is going to sound maybe like splitting hairs, but we're yelling at the choices you've made. Like, you have to separate yourself from your approach and you as a person or as an individual. It's like, these are things that you are doing that we need to correct. But that is not you yourself in your essence, right? It's like, we're really just yelling at things that you are doing.
What do you do, Ben?
Shouldn't be doing.
What do you do when your 2-year-old is like toddling off into the middle of the road?
You grab them and tell them not to do that.
What if they're not within arm's reach?
You yell.
Yeah. And it's like, and you're not judging them or you're not being mean. You're just instructing them in clear, immediate terms to try to fix that behavior.
Yeah.
Like, I don't get extra points or money or anything out of being a dick. I'm not trying to be a dick to you. I'm trying to teach you. And I know that sometimes that ends up having kind of like an abrasive manner, but it really, really works for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so I just like, stop taking it so seriously. This is not a personal insult. But if that answer is a piece of shit, I'm going to tell you, ain't no way that's the answer. And I would not even read the rest of that answer because it's clearly wrong. And if you read the whole thing and you really think that it's worthy of some serious consideration, great. And we can get you a full written explanation. Or in class, if you say, hey, I really want to know why D's wrong, I'm happy to explain it to you.
Yep.
But in the moment when I'm doing that question and the behavior that I want to model for you is that you should react strongly, negatively to that answer. You should have been expecting that it was going to be wrong. And the second it was going off the rails, you should be like, fuck you, no, out.
Yeah.
Because that's how people who are actually good at the test do it. They don't read A trying to help A be the right answer, and then read B trying to help B be the right answer. And then the same thing with C and D and E, and end up with 2 or 3 contenders. That's not a successful approach to the test, because you're going to be wasting way too much time on wrong answers, which are professionally written nonsense in many cases.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate the feedback. I super appreciate your question. And if you want clarification, we have multiple ways to give you that clarification. but I am not going to stop being a dick to those answer choices. And I want you to do the same, because that is the thing that's going to really move the needle on your score.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
I'm going to do a question and see if we can model this behavior we're talking about.
Yeah, let's do it.
Last couple, I've read them and let you answer them. Maybe this is a good one to flip it.
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay.
This is test 73, section 2, question 7. It says, Party X has recently been accused by its opposition, Party Y, of accepting international campaign contributions, which is illegal.
Okay. Whether they did it or not is still way up in the air. All I know, I know two facts here. I know that accepting international campaign contributions is illegal. I'm not going to argue with that. That was stated. I'm pretty sure that's a premise of the argument. I'm not going to argue with the premises of the argument. I'm going to argue with the conclusion. So I read that and I go, yeah, okay. If they did it, then they've done something illegal. But I am also going to notice that they're being accused of this by their opposition. And so it's a fact that they have been accused of this, but it's not a fact that they actually did it.
Okay. Such accusations are, however, ill-founded.
So that's a judgment now. That's the speaker saying, well, this is a bogus accusation. Ill-founded, seems to mean misguided or based on faulty evidence, maybe, or wrong for some reason. But, all I know is they've been accused by their opposition of this. The fact that their opposition is the ones that are accusing them of this does not mean that it's ill-founded. They could be 100% right for all I know. So I think that's going to be their conclusion. And I'm wondering what their evidence is for why these are ill-founded accusations.
3 years ago, Party Y itself was involved in a scandal in which it was discovered that its national committee seriously violated campaign laws.
Okay. I mean, if the conclusion had been such accusations are hypocritical, then I might have to acknowledge that it does seem like hypocrisy. If you yourself did it, then it might be hypocritical of you to attack someone else of doing that exact same thing that we know you did. By the way, I'm accepting that whole last sentence as a premise of the argument. I'm not arguing with the idea that Party Y did do this exact same thing 3 years ago. I'm granting, yep, they were guilty. It was a scandal. They did it. But I'm not willing to grant that the fact that Party Y did it does not mean that Party X didn't do it, or that it's wrong to attack Party X for doing it. Ill-founded seems like based on shoddy evidence, or, like, oh, we shouldn't listen to these accusations because they themselves did it. Wait, I mean, actually, if Party Y did this thing, well, then who would know better if Party X, in fact, did do it? Party Y would be like, oh, you guys did this illegal thing, and we know because we did that exact same thing. Remember when we got busted and it was illegal and it was a whole big scandal? Well, now they're doing it. Well, that accusation should still be able to stick, whether or not they're hypocritical. I don't care. It's like if the Trump administration all of a sudden was accusing people of graft. It's like, well, you guys are the biggest grifters there are. So I would probably believe you if you attacked somebody for graft, because you know how that's done.
Yeah. So the only thing
Yeah.
I would take issue here with you, I agree with that 100%. The only thing I would take issue with here is this idea that party Y did what party X, or I'm sorry, yeah, that party Y did what party X is accused of doing.
Oh, okay. I guess they didn't do exactly the same thing necessarily. It doesn't say that they accepted international campaign contributions, does it? It says
Yeah.
instead that they seriously violated campaign laws. Okay, so maybe that means that they failed to document domestic contributions, or they misused funds somehow, or they whatever they did. Okay, you're right. I didn't catch that. They did do something though. They violated campaign laws somehow.
Yes.
But the fact that they violated campaign laws somehow certainly does not get Party X off the hook. Party X told, why not both? Why can't they both
They
be
could both be
super
guilty.
dirty? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Okay.
Question 7. Which one of the following contains flawed reasoning most similar to the flawed reasoning in the argument above?
Okay, so I'm in pretty good shape here because I was yelling at the argument. Again, not yelling at you, yelling at the LSAT. On the logical reasoning, especially, they just continually make bogus argument after bogus argument after bogus argument. And I know that my job is to call bullshit. I have already called bullshit. One thing that students do way wrong here is they fail to call bullshit on the argument. Then the question says, which one of the following contains flawed reasoning most similar to the flawed reasoning in the argument above? And they haven't objected at all. Like they're like, oh yeah, that does seem hypocritical. And then they like ignore the question basically. I mean, they're quite literally asking you to match the flaw. It's not what students do, novices anyway, is they go in and they do this weird, like, well, I'm going to match one word to one word, and then I'm going to match one phrase to one phrase. And I'm going to try to, it's like, they think that it's like a structure operation. And it's probably not. It's probably a big picture match the flaw. And I like to do these matching flaw questions as if I'm matching an objection, right? So my objection is, hey, just because they did something bad doesn't mean that they're wrong when they accuse somebody else of doing something bad. Why can't they both have done something bad? And that's what I'm looking for as I go into these answer choices.
I would add to that if you're doing the test correctly, you're identifying that flaw before you even read the question, right? And if you fail to identify that flaw, but you're still trying to identify that flaw, then you might have come to the conclusion that the argument is valid. And I've done this. I've said, okay, yeah, argument seems decent to me.
Right.
And then I read which one of the following contains flawed reasoning most similar to the flawed reasoning in the argument above. And it's like a train has just hit me, right? I was walking across the tracks and bam. And it's like, I am completely aware of the fact that a train has hit me. I'm going back to the argument and say, okay, fuck, what is wrong with this argument? Whereas you're talking about people who are just like, okay, cool. Let's read A. And it's
by
like,
the way,
no train has hit them.
This could be a harder question if they didn't tell you to match the flaw. If they just said, which one of the following contains reasoning most similar to the reasoning in the argument above, they could make it a much harder question. It would be the same exact question. They just wouldn't tell you that there's a flaw. So the fact that they didn't tell you whether there is a flaw or not doesn't mean there's not a flaw. But when they do tell you that there's a flaw, then your job is to match the flaw. And as Ben said, if you didn't catch it, you better go back to the argument and make sure that you figure it out. Like, for example, if you read ill-founded, if you read that to mean hypocritical,
this argument sounds good.
You'd be like, well, yeah, that does seem ill-founded. If ill-founded means hypocritical, but if ill-founded doesn't mean hypocritical, then they have said, if ill-founded means false, then my objection is like, hey, wait a second, just because these guys did something bad doesn't mean that their accusation about party X doing something bad is wrong. Another way of thinking about these questions, these matching flaw questions, the given argument smells bad, like it's got a stink to it, right? It's just like, come on now, you don't get to do that's gross, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
When I go into the answers, I for sure need an answer that smells bad. It's like so many times people will end up picking an answer that is like superficially similar, but it's not even flawed.
Yeah.
Like I'm not picking an answer that smells like roses here. I'm picking an answer that smells bad, and it's got to smell similarly bad. So I think the best tool here is to try to match your objection. And again, I'm looking for, hey, just because they did something bad doesn't mean they're wrong when they accuse you of doing something bad.
All right. Oh, I want to say one last thing, like a 15-second disclaimer. I know some people are listening to this and probably saying, well, if the question stem helped you realize that the argument was flawed, shouldn't you have read that in the first place? And I'm just going to say no, because so often when people are told that an argument is flawed and then they read the argument and I ask them, okay, is that a bad argument? Of course, they're going to say yes, because they know it's flawed. And then I'm going to ask them why, and they are going to think that they know, but they don't actually know. So the perfect test is actually to read the argument in the absence of knowing whether it's flawed or not, and coming to that conclusion on your own, so that when you fail and then you get hit by the train, you're really aware of what's going on and what's wrong with your thinking.
Yeah. And the reverse of that is that if you read the argument and you think that they have actually proven their conclusion from their facts, which they do sometimes, especially on parallel reasoning questions, obviously not parallel flaw questions, but on parallel reasoning questions, they frequently will have proven their conclusion from their facts. And you need to notice that too. Yes, like our job is always to attack these arguments, and some of them already won. Some of them, like this one, already lost. Other ones are somewhere in between where they're just kind of incomplete. And you do need to have that, like an enthusiastic thumbs up, like summary judgment for the plaintiff, or thumbs down, summary judgment for the defendant, or, well, I don't know, we're going to have a trial. And you need to react to the argument. I really don't think it helps you at all to be tainted by the question stem. Not only that, but very frequently the question stem is just a distracting, confusing waste of time anyway. I mean, like, it's all about the argument. That's the game we're playing. Okay.
Cool. So the question is, which one of the following contains flawed reasoning most similar to the flawed reasoning in the argument above? Answer choice A says, the plaintiff accuses the defendant of violating campaign laws, but the accusations are ill-founded. Do you want me to?
It's like identical
stop?
So far.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Okay. While the defendant's actions may violate certain laws, they are not immoral because the laws in question are unjust.
I mean, that's not necessarily even a flawed argument. If I grant that the laws themselves are unjust, and this argument reaches, well, it's ill-founded. Why? Well, because it's not immoral. Why? Well, because the laws are unjust. I can't just say that that's objectively wrong. The given argument was objectively flawed, and I don't see that as flawed. So next.
Just a quick side note. I would say yeah, I guess it depends on what we mean by ill-founded.
Exactly. And I don't really know. It's unclear, but
because they are violating them. Does that matter? I don't know. Yeah.
Maybe not. They might be perfectly in the right. If we accept as a premise that you're allowed to violate unjust laws, or that it's ill-founded to accuse anybody of doing something that's not immoral, then A seems, that would be actually a sufficient assumption of A. Anyway, I mean, even if it's incomplete for sure. It's just not, I don't have such a clear
flawed,
objection. Yeah.
It's not the flaw that we were talking about.
Right.
Cool. B, the plaintiff accuses the defendant of violating campaign laws, but these accusations show the plaintiff to be hypocritical because the plaintiff has engaged in similar conduct.
See, that also I don't think is flawed. a student, like a total novice, would pick that because it has a matching theme. Like the given argument did seem to be suggesting if you're hypocritical, then you're ill-founded. But B makes a specific conclusion of you're hypocritical. And I guess one definition of hypocrisy would be accusing other people of doing the same shit that you do. So
Good.
B to me seems like, yeah, maybe they are hypocritical. It doesn't smell bad to me. Next.
Yeah, the key there is the conclusion changed, right?
Right.
Yeah. C, the plaintiff accuses the defendant of violating campaign laws, and in the past, courts have declared such violations illegal.
So that's exactly the same so far. I think novices would be like, well, courts, what do courts have to do with it? But the given argument said it is illegal to do this thing. And C says courts have declared it illegal, which really just means that it's illegal. Like, I don't care why it's illegal. I don't care if there was like a statute or whether the courts determined it to be illegal or what. It's illegal to do this thing. So they have been accused of an illegal thing. So C seems like a perfect match so far.
Nevertheless, because the plaintiff recently engaged in actions that were similar to those of the defendant, the plaintiff's accusations are ill-founded.
And that's going to be the answer. It's almost identical, man. That argument is like, it's actually not that hard of a question ultimately, because it uses so many of the exact same words. They threw in the thing about the courts, which is a little bit of a curveball, but it doesn't actually change the meaning of the premises. The ill-founded matches perfectly, but they didn't even have to say necessarily ill-founded. They surely could have said a synonym of that, poorly judged or something like that. I think that would still make C the answer. Poorly considered or something like that. I would still, I think, have to pick C. The big flaw, right? Hey, you don't get to say that the defendant is innocent or that you shouldn't be making these accusations against the defendant just because the plaintiff did that similar thing in the past.
They could both be.
Yeah. Why can't they both be wrong? Why can't they both be guilty? That's my objection to the given argument. Why can't they both be guilty? My objection to C. Why can't they both be guilty? If I can match that objection, then that's the answer.
I bet people who don't choose this answer get wrapped up in kind of what you were talking about. So one thing that this answer, the courts,
yeah.
And also the time, right? So like in answer choice C, the plaintiff, there's a sense that like, oh, this stuff was in the past for the plaintiff. I'm sorry, in the past for the defendant. It's not actually in the past, but there's this like talk, they use the phrase in the past and they associate that with the defendant. And then the plaintiff, quote, recently engaged in these actions. So there's this weird feeling that like the behavior from the plaintiff is recent and the behavior from the defendant is somehow associated with the past.
I've got to disagree.
Which is the opposite.
Yeah, but the past is referring to the courts. In the past, courts have declared such violations illegal.
I agree with you.
But you're just saying like one way of misreading it is to think that it's
I feel like the vibe, like if you're just reading this, right, especially if you're reading it loosely, there's this sense you're like, wait a sec, this switched, because in the original it said 3 years ago, the accusing party did this thing. And then this answer choice says the accusing party, the plaintiff, recently engaged in these actions. So all of a sudden people are like feeling like, oh, wait, they've switched the time. And so that's not good. I mean, the plaintiff needs to have done this in the past.
I see what you're saying.
You have to realize that like things can be different about an argument, but not critical to the underlying reasoning and the underlying flaw.
Well, it doesn't even have to be about campaign laws. It doesn't have to be about one party accusing another party. This could have been about kindergartners. Billy was wrong when he accused Janet of punching him in the face because 2 years ago, or because yesterday, Billy punched someone else in the face. And it's like, well, why not both? You know, you got to get to that objection, and the objection is going to be the same, even if it's in an entirely different context. So yeah, we can't dismiss C because of superficial differences, for sure.
D, the plaintiff accuses the defendant of violating campaign laws, but these accusations are ill-founded. They are clearly an attempt to stir up controversy because they were made just 2 weeks before the election.
I mean, I would definitely object to that. I would say, even if they are an attempt to stir up controversy, they could still be correct.
Yep.
Why wouldn't you want to stir up controversy if you're
If
2
they are
weeks
correct
before an election? And if they are correct, you're going to want to make as big of a stink about it as you possibly can. So I don't care whether it's an attempt to stir up controversy. I care about the truth or falsity of the claim. D's not addressing the truth or falsity of the claim. But my objection to it is just there is no like, oh, but you yourself did a similar thing. That's not even in D at all. It was in the given argument and it was in C. That's enough for me to just dismiss D.
So you're saying D is invalid or flawed, but not flawed in the same way.
It smells, it just does not smell the same way.
E, the plaintiff accuses the defendant of voting only for campaign laws that would favor the defendant's party. This accusation is ill-founded, however, because it attacks the defendant's motivations instead of addressing the arguments the defendant has put forth justifying these votes.
Maybe it's logically valid.
Sure.
Maybe if you're accusing them of voting only for campaign laws that would favor the defendant's party, then you are in fact attacking their motives. Like, well, you're only doing this because it benefits you. And maybe that's attacking their motives rather than listening to their actual policy arguments, which might be like, oh yeah, well, sure, it does benefit us, but it benefits everybody. And that's why we want it. That's why we think it's a good idea. Nothing there about the person doing the accusation having been guilty of the same thing or similar thing in the past. And I've already got C, and I just wouldn't spend too much more time with it.
Yeah. Sounds like you're saying E doesn't smell that bad, but even if it did smell badly, it's not the same stink.
Yeah, exactly. No, because I really treat these as if they were matching objection questions. And we could even rename the question type, matching objection. Sure. Where you've read an argument that was objectionable, you should make an objection. And then when you go into the answer choices, you should be looking to match that objection. It's just another way of saying match the flaw. But my objection to C,
stink.
Yeah, match the stink. We could call it that. Okay, cool.
Should we wrap it up there?
Yeah, I think we probably should. You can be LSAT famous. Get yourself on an upcoming show by emailing help@thinkinglsat.com. If you have any questions about the LSAT demon, we have an incredible team of customer service people who will respond to you lightning quick if you email help@lsatdemon.com. That was episode 301 of the Thinking LSAT podcast. Thanks all y'all for listening. Nice knowing you. Don't pay for law school.